Welcome to another edition of the Wrestling Retrospective Podcast. I'm your host, Ernest Christian, coming to you here for another watch along here. I'm doing this along with my man, Rob the Genius, of course. Rob, of course, one-third of the Mindless Wrestling Podcast. I'm just a little odd here because, unfortunately, I am doing this on my iPad. You can see us here now. Number one, my angle's all fucked up, number one, because normally I'm on my computer. Before we came on here to do the show, my computer took a shit. After 15 years, my MacBook, I think, is dead. Rob?
Oh, no.
It gave me a good run, brother. It gave me a good run, but I think it's over. 15 years later, I think it's over.
Well, look, 15 years is a good run because none of my laptops have lasted that long lately. And because, like, I haven't had one just die on me, but they all get to a point where it's kind of overloaded and they slow down.
Yeah,
and they get a little too slow to do anything. And so I've traded them in, and so I'm on my like third or fourth one now in the last 6 or 7 years.
Oh, really?
Well, because I don't get the big fancy ones. I mean, I get I get a nice one for $200 or $300, and it lasts a couple of years, and then by the time so replacing it isn't too much because I don't buy like super expensive.
I don't blame you. Well, mine was a MacBook too, so mine did cost a little bit of money at the time. I bought it in 2010. Bro, that's not, I wasn't even married when I had this computer. I didn't have kids yet, and now my kids, I'm going to have a teenager next year, and so that's how long it's been for me. But it's giving me a good run. I saw the glitch on there, and it said it was like there was a memory corruption. So,
okay,
it sounds like it's dead.
Yeah.
So rest in peace to my MacBook. I believe it's over here. But we can still do. I mean, here's the thing too. Also, on computers, we're in a day and age now where, for me, if I was with a podcast, I wouldn't need a computer. The podcast gives me the ability to. And here's the thing, I can still podcast right now, doing this with you right now. It's just that the computer gives you the ability to have my own studio set up. You know what I mean? The extra shit. The microphone and the mixer and all this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like so right now today we're doing a stripped down version of the show. And probably for the foreseeable future until I get a new computer next month or so. Because Daddy don't got $200 like that. You gotta be very careful when you spend money. So it is. But y'all ain't here to hear about my shit here. I have recorded a podcast in about 2 weeks, honestly. Between the schedules, between me getting sick, and I'm still kind of under the weather, to be honest. I'm still coughing. I feel fine, but I've been under the weather still the last couple of days too. Also, on top of that, I haven't had a chance to do an actual sit-down pod. Like, I've done a couple like rants here and there and unfiltered stuff here on the feed, but haven't done my regular podcast. Haven't done False Count interview in 2 weeks. Haven't done anything else on the side with guests. Had to cancel a couple times with you. Cancel a couple of friends I've had also too this week. I had planned for cancel that too as well because I was sick. But we're here, and we're gonna do something different today because normally when we do these watch-alongs, most of the time we do WWE related stuff. However, you told me a month ago that this month is this year rather is the 35-year anniversary of the Capital Combat from 1990 at WCW, and there's a couple of good bangers that you want to watch. So therefore, we're going to do that. We're going to ask you to watch one match here. We're going to watch the Doom versus Steiner Brothers. This is for the tag titles, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, Capital Combat 1990 took place actually a month ago, May 19, 1990, in Washington, D.C. at the D.C. Armory. The attendance here was 7,500 people. The tagline for the show is "The Return of RoboCop." Bruh.
Okay,
Y'all know this show, man. The RoboCop.
Let me set this up. Okay. So, when they announced the title, everyone did a collective groan.
Did you two also
Now,
at age 15?
yes, because at that point, I was a diehard WCW guy, and a couple of friends of mine were more WWF leaning, and so we would go back and forth just sometimes. And this was one of those times. And of course, look, the thing that us NWA WCW fans always held on to was that the NWA was where the real wrestling is. You know,
To be
we don't
fair,
do,
it really is.
but like we don't do all that silly stuff. You know, we don't have the silly gimmicks, and we don't have this. Even though, look, we watched everything, right? But when it got time to stand up for your favorite company, that was our thing. Like, right, we don't have silly stuff. We don't have nobody bringing animals to the ring, and we don't have silly gimmicks, and and right. And so they announced this, and this was like playing pickup and getting dunked on, basically, and everybody's looking at you like, dude, what happened? And so, my friends who were WWF fans, they were just looking at me like, oh, really now? And because RoboCop 2 was coming out this summer,
Yeah.
and they did a movie tie-in because this was after Ted Turner had bought them from Jim Crockett, and he put a guy in charge named Jim Herd, and Jim Herd. You listen to anybody who was there talk about Jim Herd, and they have nothing good to say about him.
Yeah, that's
I
the story
mean,
there.
whether nobody has anything good to say about Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Jim Cornette. Nobody has anything good to say about Jim Herd,
Right.
because he was trying to turn it into a WWF like product.
But to be fair, I mean, that was when the money was there, and that's what people were gravitating to anyway in that time, between 86 and 87 and through 90. So,
yeah, but the thing is, and this is always the thing, right? If you're going to be the opposition to WWF and now WWE, you need to be different, right? And and it's fool's gold to try and be, WWE light.
Yeah.
You're better off just being, if you have something different, then do that and do it really well. Because that's how Jim Crockett was successful up until he had to sell. Even during the Monday Night Wars, they weren't. There were similarities, sure, but they weren't running the same show, right? When WCW was succeeding, right? And so it's just, so there were silly there were silly gimmicks. They did product tie-ins and movie tie-ins. This was one of them. And so on this show, RoboCop made an appearance and chased off the Horsemen.
The fact they sold this, and the fact they actually promoted this, is
and then
beyond anything I've ever seen in my life in wrestling history.
And then listen to Arn talk about it. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for them having to sell being afraid of a guy in a RoboCop costume. Even though it was the movie, it was the actual movie costume, or whatever. But the fact that that they had to sell being afraid of that, they they hated it. But here's the saving grace through all this time was, even as Jim Herd was continuing constantly doing stupid things like that, they still had some great wrestling.
Absolutely. And I would argue back then in 1990, when we look at actual work rate matches, WCW can be argued was still, even though WWE at this point in 1990 had a pretty great roster of in-ring talent, I would say WCW was still probably a step above them in terms of work rate matches.
Well, I put it this way: their ceiling was still higher in the ring.
Correct.
And so that brings us to this match. This is the Steiner Brothers versus Doom. Doom. All right, so and Doom is like one of the great comeback stories because they started out in 1989, and they were brought in by a woman, and she was Nancy Sullivan, and later on Nancy Benoit.
Yeah, we know that one.
Yeah, and but she was brought in. She brought them in to go after the Steiner brothers, and and there was this big long build up, like, who are these guys? Who is Doom? And they were under masks. And here's the problem. So the first match they came out, they had the masks on, but everybody, you could take one look at them and you knew exactly who they were because of how they were built. Because of how they were built. First of all, because everybody knew, like, Ron Simmons and Butch Reed had very, very easy to recognize physiques.
And they're black.
And they're black, yes. And so when they came out there, it was very obvious. And the problem is that the reaction was the reaction wasn't, oh, okay, this should be a good team. The reaction was, you took Ron Simmons and Butch Reed and put on them these goofy masks.
Right.
And so they weren't thinking.
Was that another Jim Herd decision? Another Jim Herd idiotic
More
decision?
Yes, more than likely, yes.
Yeah.
And so, it was just, you took these two, great wrestlers and you decided to put them under these goofy masks. And so the team, they weren't taken seriously. The team, and so they got a few wins to establish themselves, but then just, again, nobody took them seriously. And then so they started losing a bunch. And that kind of became the gimmick, right? They started losing, and then so they feuded with the Road Warriors, and I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so and then they were feuding with the Steiners, and then the feud turned around, and then the Steiners beat them, and they beat them in like a masks versus titles match.
Right.
And then so from there, that was supposed to be rock bottom, but then they hooked up with Teddy Long, and then it kind of became their redemption, because it's like, okay, well, now you guys are you guys are just you're Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, and we know who you are. We know you guys are great. So they say, they feuded with the Road Warriors for a bit, and then they went back to the Steiner brothers. And now with Teddy Long as their manager, now they are who they are. It put a whole new spin on everything.
Yeah.
And so it led up to this. This was their kind of big moment, their big title shot here, their chance to win the titles again at this event.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it led to here. And so they were very over in Washington, D.C. because look, I mean, Washington, D.C., black wrestlers are always over in Washington, D.C.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, that writes itself, honestly.
Yes. So,
why did you pick this match? Before we get started, why this match?
Well, because I know you wanted to get some, you were looking for stuff to recommend, and I figured these were guys, like, you had seen them in the WWF, all of them at different points, and just, I thought this would just be a good one to get into. This was really like, well, because also we're talking about anniversary stuff.
Yeah.
And so this is the 35th anniversary of the show.
And we would have done this a month ago too. Also, we actually wanted to nail this around the same week, at least. We tried to get the anniversary around the same week or so.
Yeah.
But the schedule got kind of weird and stuff. Because May 19th was when they did this event. But I'm looking for this one. I've seen this match before in the past. But it's been years though. So, all right, guys. Before we get started, set up my phone here. The timestamp is 1 hour, 57 minutes, and 22 seconds. It is WCW Capital Combat Return of RoboCop, Season 1, Episode 1, of course. Go to the WCW section and look it up there. If you need to pause this podcast, feel free to do so. To get caught up. Otherwise, if you are ready to go, at 1 hour, 57 minutes, 22 seconds. We get this party started and watch this match. Again, it's a classic. It's Rob the Genius recommendation here. So, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. As Tony Schiavone fades off my screen here. I'll say it again, man. WCW 1990, 91, 92, 93, pre-Hogan. Very fascinating stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, because there was a brief period in '91, what after Rick left, or he got fired or whatever. For like a couple of months, things went really south. But other than that, from up until that whole period during the early '90s, up until Hogan came in and basically took over, there was just so much. There were so many good matches. There was a lot of good stuff there. And but unfortunately, now the quality of the product took a dip when Hogan came in, but they made more money,
And that's weird, right? Like you can't argue the fact that the quality matches in the early '90s pre Hogan were amazing. I've always said the reason WCW sucked was because of the business, because the people who ran the company were idiots.
Yes, and that one they always tried to get after Crockett sold, everyone who ran the company kept trying just to get away from their roots. And because WCW or NWA, it was this Southern based wrestling company, and and so Jim Herd tried to get away from that. Eric Bischoff got away from it, and then look, Bischoff had success, of course, but just everyone who ran it, after Jim Crockett sold it, kept trying to get away from what it was. And then, unfortunately, with the Hogan thing, it's just like the business had just fallen off a cliff so much that they had to cancel house shows. And so Hogan coming in brought in more money than they had been making.
Yep.
Even though it wasn't until Nitro when things really took off for them, but getting to this, so this is the big redemption here, and you see the Steiners are there, and they had a bunch of just hard hitting matches, and they were these are just really great stuff that they have here. Man, you see Teddy Long.
By the way, that's Braun Breaker's daddy with the wild hair there.
Yeah, his dad and his uncle. Yep, his dad and his uncle, and now Scott's kid just got signed. So
yeah. Oh wow, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Scott's kid, Mark Henry's kid, and Titus O'Neil's kid all got signed.
See, Teddy Long's hair got exposed. He's balding.
Yeah.
Look, man. If Slick is the greatest black manager of all time, is Teddy Long number 2?
Yeah, and look, Teddy. I mean, he's a fascinating story because he started out as a referee for Jim Crockett.
I can see that.
He was a referee, and then they did a storyline where he basically went crooked, and it was very similar to the Danny Davis thing, but except where Danny became a wrestler, Teddy became a manager, right? And then, and he had a couple of guys before this that really didn't get very far, but putting him and Doom together was perfect.
Were they part of the Jacksons? Ron Simmons and Butch Reed? The Jerry Curls. 1990 was so pretty popping.
Oh man. Yeah, because I mean,
fix that bandana, bro. Fix that bandana. So Doom was the heels.
Yes. And they were champs for almost a year, like 10 months from here, from March through February the next year. They were, and they beat a lot of people. I think they beat the Road Warriors on their way out.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they beat the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, you mentioned that because the Road Warriors will lead the company after this event because they end up becoming Legion of Doom about 3 months later at SummerSlam.
Yeah, and it's funny because like because Jim Clement told the story. They like so the Road Warriors were leaving, and normally you put people over on the way out, but Jim Hurd was too stupid to even have them do that. So they just there were a couple of shows where they just kind of went into business for themselves and put the other teams over.
This match is a banger already, man. Look at this. Oh,
Oh
my
yeah, look
God.
at
Power slam.
yeah.
Yo, no lie. This is a great one.
Yeah, you see, look, they're not wasting any time here.
Yep. Right off the gate. Now these guys, I'm sure faced each other multiple times, right? In around this time, right?
Oh yeah, because I mean, they started wrestling each other like in the fall before, in like October of the previous year. So
89,
they had
right?
been,
Okay.
yes, they had been on TV, house shows, just everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, at this point, they wrestled like a million times. So
Who would think that Steiner there? That guy would end up being the freak with the math.
oh
The math.
yeah, that's what's funny. Well, because I mean, it's funny seeing like because Scott. All right, so when they first came in, Rick was always big, and Scott was skinnier, right?
Yeah.
And then Scott over time just started growing and growing and growing.
You know why?
Yeah, just chicken breasts and working out and
The nice black crowd there. Look at that.
oh yeah, because I mean this was DC,
DC.
and
It's a great match, or
yeah, I mean like they're hitting each other hard.
yeah. Like believability is one thing WCW did very well with in terms of in the ring. You got Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross on commentary here also.
Yeah.
Jim Ross before it comes to WWE. Jim Ross was great even before WWE, man. He had a great cadence, like a sports radio, sports television cadence to himself. Look at this. These monsters. This is Butch Reed's last gasp, right? I mean, did he retire after this? Though he was still wrestle beyond WCW,
Um,
obviously.
well, I think he wrestled after Doom broke up, but he didn't really do much of anything.
Right.
So this was basically
his last big splash.
Yeah, and of course for Ron was just getting started here.
Yeah, Ron Simmons, fresh out of Florida State.
Yeah,
becomes the first black champion ever.
Yeah, and this because he was really green, and so him getting into a tag team here was exactly the right thing to do.
That guy become Farouk.
Yeah.
The Acolyte? Not the Acolyte yet. Acolytes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, him and Bradshaw, yeah.
Yeah.
So Ron was probably just two of the best tag teams of that decade. Here and then with with JBL.
What would you rank Doom all-time tag team? Not just WCW, but all-time tag team.
Oh man, they're just wow, because they're really underrated because
that's 2 years. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that they started in '89 and they went through to they had about a year and a half.
Yeah,
but for that, they were great for that year and a half. And
impactful.
Put it this way, I would put their work up against anybody.
Right.
So if we're talking about like how good they were, they're just as good as you tag them, and they're every bit as good as any great tag team you can think of.
I agree 100%.
It's just they were only together a year and a half, whereas the Road Warriors were together 10 years or they have longer, and the Rock and Roll Express are still teaming up, and the Midnight Express were together, in various forms for longer, and of course the Steiners are together for long, So they just didn't have, they didn't have a long, if they'd been together, 5 years instead of a year and a half, then we'd be talking about them in the same breath as
Absolutely.
And look, they would be great right now. I mean,
oh my God, yes. You can put them with the Hurt Business.
Yeah. Oh, because I was gonna say that basically the Bobby and Shelton are basically they're the modern day equivalent of
Yeah. It's a great match, man. This is a fantastic match.
Yeah, they are just beating the hell out of each other.
They're selling well too. Also, on top of that, selling well, hitting well. You got Tay Long doing his thing. This is great stuff here, man.
Yeah, and that's Bob Caudle with Jim Ross.
Okay. The Steiners definitely a tag team. Like I remember when I was on Take the Wrestling back in the day, we did like a big episode on we did like a bracket, and I know the Steiners made it to the top 4. I think it was all time tag teams. Somewhere top 4, top 6. It was definitely they definitely placed well in the bracket. I think the Dudley Boys won the whole thing though, but the Steiners are one of those teams that look at longevity and impact and teamwork and whatnot. Like if I'm formulating if I'm doing a ranking system right now of the greatest tag teams in pro wrestling history, WWE, NWA, WCW, AEW, you name it. You cannot do a list and they're not in your top 10. You cannot do a list not in your top 10.
And man, did you see that power driver Rick put on him?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean Steiners are definitely they're definitely near the top. And
good crowd too. Also, very good crowd. Very engaged. This was the last match.
I went to a few shows in that building, and I wasn't able to make it to this one. No, I didn't go to this one. A few months later, I did go up to Baltimore for the Great American Bash.
Well, Sting won a title.
Yeah, but
we will watch that again. We will watch that.
Yeah, and on that same show, Doom fought the Rock and Roll Express, and there was another they fought the Rock and Roll Express on that show, and then there was one of the best tag team matches ever, Midnight Express and the Southern Boys on that show.
Okay.
And actually, on this show, the Midnight Express went against Brian Pillman and Tom Zink, and that was a really good match too.
Tom Zink, formerly the Can-Am Connection.
Yeah.
And he left because he didn't get paid.
Yep. And man, that story was crazy, man. Basically, Rick took all the money. Rick Martel took all.
They worked in the storyline too. Also, that's how he got. That's how he ended up getting Tio Santana.
Yeah. And Rick Steiner at one point.
Oh damn! Scott, is she a spot?
Yeah. Because Rick had an interesting run before he and Scott came along. He was part of the varsity club, and he ended up that was a heel faction. Him and Mike Rotunda with Kevin Sullivan, and he broke out of that and turned babyface, and he was over huge.
The Stars were never a heel faction, a heel team, were they?
I don't know. No, they weren't a heel team. No, but Rick had been a heel, several times before Scott came aboard.
Okay.
Because Rick before he came to the NWA, he was in the UWF, and he and Sting were UWF Tag Team Champions.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's the first I saw him. Was in the UWF. He and Sting were the UWF Tag Team Champions. And then they split up as Sting went babyface, and then they feuded with each other.
Yeah, Butch Reed was very underrated too. Another guy that You know, was a very good mid carder WWE, but apparently the story I hear numerous times is that when Ricky Steamboat won a title in WrestleMania 3 in '87, and then he had to go away to be a father. There were a couple of people they were looking at to replace him to hold the IC title in that spring/fall. Butcher was one of those guys rumored to be next in line to get that title. But apparently he came late to a show, so Vince changed his mind, and that's how Honky got the title.
Wow.
That's what I've heard.
And well, Butcher's heyday as a singles wrestler was in the early '80s. So he's another guy. Look, if he'd come along, like yeah, I mean, if he'd come along 10 years later, I mean, we would know him much better, you know. But there's some matches on YouTube out there with Butch Reed challenging Ric Flair for the NWA World Title. But oh man, like I love these guys, man, because they just they not just the power stuff, but the way they throw punches and
oh yeah, bro. Scott being back then was huge.
yeah, well, because it's funny because like when he first got there like a year before this, and he was in good shape.
Yeah,
but he wasn't like this. Like he was into the program by this point.
yeah,
You know, but when he first got there, he wasn't right. And he was still in really good shape, but he was skinnier. But by this point, yeah, he's on the program.
yeah. There's Ron Simmons. Oh, Farouk.
Yeah.
Little pieces that came out of this. Where's it? She broke it. Good job. There you go. Oh. This is a famous Randy Orton move there. There we go. These moves are crisp also too, man. My God.
Yeah.
These boys are guys they put on a banger. This is a 5-star match, in my opinion. This is a 5-star match for me.
They're laying this stuff in, man.
Yes. Now Doom is defending champions at this time, right?
No, they were challengers.
Oh, challenge, right? Okay.
Yeah, this was their big moment here.
Okay.
Because they had turned everything around once they had to take the masks off.
Yeah.
And they had feuded with the Road Warriors briefly, and so they had made their big turnaround, and so this was their big this was their crowning moment here.
Do you know why the masks went on in the first place? Or was Jim Hurt that much of a moron?
I think, well, because they were. I'm just.
I don't want to yell and scream racism, man, but I can't help but think that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, because they were supposed to be like these. They were supposed to be this like secret tag team, you know. But I think I'm going to guess it was Jim Hurt because they could have easily just been brought in as themselves to do the same thing against the Steiners.
Yeah.
And somebody thought it was a good idea to put them under some masks. But again, like I said, everybody knew who they were. Oh, look, man. Look.
Mm-hmm. Damn. Football tackle there. And Ron Simmons was that green back then. Boy, he learned quick.
Yeah.
Oh. What a match.
Yeah.
Is that Nick? What's his face in his referee? Nick.
No, that's Pee Wee Anderson.
Oh, okay. He looks so puny, isn't he? Look at the referee.
Oh yeah, well,
Look,
I think that's where I got the nickname from.
yeah.
Man, I'm just I mean, like everything is.
Ooh, that could have been bad too. That move that Scott just did there, that could have been bad.
Oh yeah.
There's Rick in there, and there's is that Butch? Is Butch in the room? I know everybody loves Jim Ross, circa WWE, 1998, 99, 2000, but Jim Ross in 1990, 91, 92 was cooking too.
Oh yeah.
This is a different way. This is a different way.
And what's funny is like because so many of their wrestlers were like former football players, and the way he talked about those guys, you would like basically everybody sounded like the best player to get cut
Right.
on the last day of training camp. The way he talked about all of them.
Right.
But then,
Dude, Butcher's a big motherfucker, man. Huge.
yeah.
He's what? So he gotta be like 6'4", 270, right? Easy.
Yeah.
Maybe 280.
Yeah, both of them, him and Simmons. I mean, like all of these guys are big, and now they're just throwing hands in the middle of the ring. Look at this, man.
Ooh, Scott to the post. Uh oh. Can take long. That's it. That's gotta be it. 1, 2, 3. That crowd loves him too. Heels.
Yeah. Oh, because
that white boy there, like, look at that.
Man, it was like, hey, look, man, Washington D.C., man. Yeah.
Great match. 5 stars, easy. Wow, great job. Like I've seen this match before, obviously in the past, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, so they just had like good hard hitting matches like this all week. Because again, at the Great American Bash, they wrestled the Rock and Roll Express. Later on that year, they wrestled Arn Anderson and just different combinations of Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, and Barry Windham, and those were some excellent matches that they had.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they were.
Unbelievable. What a match.
Yeah.
Tay Long does this thing. There's Jim Ross. Well, I thought it was first Jim Ross. Obviously, he just had a cancer scare recently.
Yeah.
But apparently they got everything out. Apparently, we hear him.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's this was just
So they were champions for a year, you said, and then Ron Simmons goes solo.
Yeah, because they split up. They split up, and then Ron Simmons went solo, and then then he eventually then that would start his road to eventually becoming world champion in '92. But this was, I mean, look, man, they were an outstanding tag team, and yeah, it's again, they had a short. If they had been together longer, because they're only together a year and a half, but I will take everything they did during that year and a half. I will put that up against anybody's work.
I would too. And look at the quality. Look at the quality opponents they faced too. Also, in that.
I mean, during that time, they wrestled the Steiners, they wrestled the Road Warriors, they wrestled the Rock and Roll Express, they wrestled the Horsemen.
The be all end all of tag team wrestling.
Yeah, I mean.
Theodore Long. And Tony Schiavone had just gotten back from WWE after a year. He was here for a year from '89 to early 1990. So he's fresh off of WWE. So there it is. There. That was a great
Yeah,
match. Fantastic. I
and
like
it was. And so look, when we do the Great American Bash, I mean, there are we can watch their match with the Rock and Roll Express. We can watch the Midnight Express and the Southern Boys, and we can watch the main event. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
in fact, look, there are a lot of matches from that show worth watching. And then there's and also one match. Well, one match it was okay, but it was kind of a first look. It was Lex Luger defending the U.S. title against Mean Mark Callis.
Shortly before he leaves to go to WWE to become an Undertaker.
Yes, just a few months. Yes, because he was told by Ole Anderson that you're never going to draw any money, and so
Okay.
yeah, and Mark Callis was managed by Paul Heyman, or he was Paulie Dangerously then.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah,
I forgot that. Well, we'll definitely do that one, definitely, man. Again, that was a 5-star match. I truly enjoyed that one. And no more to say about that one. I think Doom, as you said, Doom is one of those tag teams that easy to forget because a year and a half they're together. It was 25 years ago. But and not only that, you look at a guy like Ron Simmons, he's done even better work beyond Doom. But these guys stay together even a couple more years. There's no telling how big this guy's gonna gotten.
yeah, and I guess if they had started a few years younger, when Butch was a few years younger, they could
Right,
have had
that's
a
the
longer
point.
run.
Also, Ron was young. Butch wasn't.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Yeah, Ron, exactly. Ron was young, Butch wasn't, and so although I mean, Butch looked great there. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
but if yeah, if Butch was the same age as Ron, they would have had they could have easily put together a 4 or 5 year run.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. I mean, that was great. That was a great watch along. All right, Rob, plug away with the plug, man. For a while.
Okay. So as always, you can catch me, DJ, and Jason on the Mindless Wrestling Podcast. And you can catch me every couple of weeks on the Rob the Genius podcast. It's funny because look, I recorded a bunch of stuff. I recorded a thing about some WNBA stuff, but
what?
I literally,
After that brawl, you didn't put it out yet? Come on, man. That brawl.
well, because I recorded a bunch of stuff and I finished it like the day before the brawl.
Oh, okay.
So now, so I gotta, you know, yeah. So I had to basically, I have to rewrite, but that is the downside to recording the way that I do is that sometimes, just the downside of recording the way that I do is just that, sometimes because I don't finish so fast, I don't finish, some stuff gets outdated, some stuff takes on a whole new angle, and I have to go back to it again.
Some stuff aren't so evergreen.
Yeah.
I get it. Trust me. I totally get it. So, but yeah, we'll do another pod next week. Definitely post on air next week. Next Tuesday. Even with the setup if you have to. I don't give a shit. And definitely do Great American Bash next month because I definitely want to see Sting's first title over Flair.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, and being in the building for that was, I mean, that was the biggest match, I guess, as far as title changes, until me and Jason went to WrestleMania 40, that was the biggest title change I'd ever been in the building for.
Wow, that's wow. That's crazy. So, all right, man. Good job as always. And of course, you find me on Twitter at eastchristian7. Of course, Earnestly Podcast. Of course, all podcast catchers, especially on the video side, Earnestly Pod on YouTube, Earnestly Pod on Twitter, also on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. Hopefully my computer will be back working again. If not, new computer coming in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. But until then, we will try to continue to put out content. Even doing it this way on my iPad, we'll find a way to do it no matter what. So, till next one, Rob, thanks always coming on, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yep.